Hey everyone, how's it going? Delrith here, bringing you another rapid fire review, this time for the game Destiny 2 Shadowkeep. Shadowkeep, of course, was developed by Bungie, but this time a big difference is that they published themselves after having recently severed ties with Activision and going off on their own to put the game on Steam. Now I know what you're thinking. This is an expansion and not a standalone game, but with a few previous expansions having come out and everyone hyping it up, Joe and I just decided it'd be best to go back and check it out, giving it a second chance with all these improvements to see if we could suggest it to you. For anyone who doesn't know, the game has recently become free to play as well, and by that I mean Destiny 2, allowing anyone and everyone who hasn't played the game to hop in and experience a good chunk of what it has to offer. Additionally, they've evened out everyone's levels in starting light, which is the power level of your character, allowing you to play with friends even if you haven't played in quite a long time. Shadowkeep's story continues directly after the storyline of Forsaken, taking people back to the moon and really beginning to investigate those floating black pyramids, kind of spoilers, seen at the end of the vanilla game. Ruh-roh.
Welcome. We've been waiting.
It really begins to show off the effects of the nightmare, or darkness, or whatever they're calling it these days, and how much power it has, encouraging players to get to the bottom of it and to prepare for the coming war. So I'm just gonna jump right in and say straight up that when I think of an expansion, I think of something that expands heavily upon a game. I'm talking linear story, open worlds added, quest lines added, progression, and a lot of new activities to boot. Generally, when I think of an expansion, I tend to assume that it'll give 10 to 15 hours of starting new content, with more content like raids and dungeons being added later to support the initial massive content after people begin to get bored. By starting content, I mean unique content, like a set path you're not grinding over and over and over again. The problem with Shadowkeep, and what makes it extremely hard to review, is that for your $35 price point, you really don't get a lot of it up front at all. In fact, if you exclude the majority of the moon, considering that's available to roam and do stuff on in the free-to-play model, there's really not much to do, and it's pretty bare bones. Don't get me wrong. I understand that Bungie has a habit of doing these initial investment purchases and providing content over a longer period of time, but given the fact that the new storyline is kinda only 3 to 4 hours long at that price point, I really just can't support it this time around. I know you get the 4th season pass, which is alright by itself, but it's bundled and not something you can separate to justify it. Shadowkeep starts you off doing an invasion landing mission, which is pretty dang cool, on the moon, asking you to push back the hive and establish a foothold. Afterwards, you're going to speak to Eris Morn, the primary quest giver for Shadowkeep, who will send you off on a couple of missions investigating why the hive is so active again on the moon. These missions will send you underground into previous places seen in Destiny 1, requiring you to re-kill old enemies and bosses and content you've killed in the past. In fact, a good amount of the story content that they do provide with Shadowkeep uses a lot of assets from the first game, not really throwing a lot of new at you to captivate or pull you in initially. I remember this asshole. I also remember how much of a pain he was. I gotta get to the sides. The end story will unlock the first raid of the expansion, something they always have with their game launches or expansion launches, a challenging experience which is pretty decent. I really enjoyed progressing through it, and the bosses were extremely interesting, requiring you to do a lot of teamwork and learn mechanics simply rather than just throwing bullet sponges at you. That's pretty much how it's always been in Destiny, though. I was just super appreciative at how well done it was and how pretty the entire thing looked. The raid was entirely enjoyable and something that all players who play the free-to-play model or even buy into Shadowkeep at some point should push towards. There's also another game mode they added called the Vex Invasion, which is pretty neat. A horde mode sort of mini raid that has you go to an area and slay dozens of enemies in succession, rewarding you with a chest after each gauntlet that you go through. It's a decent way to get geared and a good place to mindlessly slaughter enemies for hours, so I have to give them props for that. The two new strikes are fairly decent and short, each one taking about 20 minutes if you're fairly competent. They're fully voiced and look fantastic inside, so there's that, but yeah, they're strikes like any other strike in the game. Moon's haunted. Sure.
Hesitation is not among them.
As far as player customization and playstyle, they went to a more Diablo style of sorts, kind of like they did in Destiny 1, simplifying mods and adding more stats like intelligence and strength, so that's pretty awesome. I'm always a big fan on adding more stats to things and more customization of any type, so I hope there's more of that in the future. I will also give credit, since I'm talking about how good things look, that the entirety of Destiny 2 looks absolutely gorgeous, and all of the locations from Shadowkeep, even though they're reused, just looks mind-blowingly good. Seriously, straight up, this entire game is like eye candy, and everything looks fantastic, from the exotics to the scenery and to the characters. It's just all really fucking good. Truthfully, though, I'm not going to spend the time to beat around the bush or drag this out. I just genuinely don't think Shadowkeep is worth buying, however, in its current state. It's something that you should pick up in the future when they add more, but the asking price at $35 to me is currently far too steep to invest in. Destiny 2 and all the other content it has to offer since launch, though, is a completely different story. Seriously, the base game has become fantastic since I played last. The free-to-play model is perfect for Destiny, and the amount of fun you can have if you've been gone for so long is entirely worthwhile to go after. As well, if you were waiting on Forsaken, I totally support people buying that DLC before trying Shadowkeep. It's fantastic, and everything from Year 2 is included in that, allowing you to see and experience everything that you missed. The only major problem with their free-to-play release, and something I really need to speak about, is that the new light system, although fantastic in theory and on paper, was poorly implemented and causes an issue for new players. The new light system is the name that they gave the boost that they did to all characters, putting everyone to level 50 and unlocking all trees, as well as boosting starting power to 750.
This place is an old cosmodrome, a Russian spaceport. It's quarantined now, and quite dangerous, but our only way forward is through that wall.
Nightmare hunts are also something else that Shadowkeep added. They provide a powerful engram if you do 3 of them, and they're pretty much just super-tuned missions that you repeat where you fight harder enemies with mutators. They're kind of like mini Nightfalls, I guess, and they're not so bad.
Forget Io. Genesis Mind defeated my
I made a mistake.
Corrupted my arm. Destroy it.
Previously, when you played through Destiny 2 from the beginning, you had a clear path of what to do. It was guided, taking you step by step in quest directions and progressing you through the story the way it was intended, somewhat holding your hand. You had a clear path of progression, something simple to follow, and it led to the next expansion, then Forsaken, so on and so forth, pretty damn clearly. The new light, for the most part, copies the same sort of intro that Destiny 1 had, with players waking up and saying hello to your floaty spark dude, before dumping you into the universe with little to no guidance. It seriously explains very little to almost nothing, giving players absolutely no sense of where to begin or what content starts in what location. I've had literally dozens of people, including my closest friends, asking what the hell they're supposed to do or where they're supposed to start specific storylines to do things in order, which is a major fuck up in my opinion on Bungie's part, especially if they're trying to retain people from the free-to-play model and encourage them to buy DLC. It just gives you a stupid-ass series of checklists and is entirely obtuse, not allowing anyone to really experience the game that it was intended, making actual sense, without spending a long time online sorting through what does what. Not to mention, if you haven't done these campaigns, characters are already dead and the world's already changed forever for the new experience, leading to even further confusion. I don't even know what you're talking about. You guys keep saying words and they don't mean anything to me. I have no clue or can even fathom what made them decide to dump players into the game without any strong guidance. It's just handled so poorly and something they really, really, really need to fix fast. Like, seriously, Bungie, what the fuck were you thinking? How hard would it have been to just tie things in a string for new players to follow in order? Seriously, like, who the fuck thought of this? Make it optional. It doesn't matter. Just handle it better. Did anyone even try this new player experience before releasing it to the public? And I'm not the only one that thinks this either. Multiple outlets like PC Gamer are straight up running articles on how awful the new player experience is, so you know it's bad. It's just a damn shame because the free-to-play model, like I said, offers so much and gives players so much content to go through and try out, and getting rewarded with gear that's powerful enough to be relevant regardless of what you're doing is awesome. So I guess in the end, to summarize all my thoughts, go out and play the free version of Destiny 2. Give it a shot. Use the online resources if you have to figure out where the hell to start, which, by the way, I think is Amanda Holiday. And play with friends on Steam. Just give it a chance. Raiding Shadowkeep, though, given the content that it adds, and I can't count the moon, that's in the free-to-play model, although I guess I could count some submissions on there, and the price that it costs, I'm gonna have to give it a 5 out of 10 in its current state. Only reviewing the content that it currently adds. I know it's gonna get better. I know this. And I'm not hating on the game as a whole. I am simply saying that for the moment, it's a 5 out of 10, and you should probably do the other content if you haven't before purchasing Shadowkeep. Don't buy it if you're a new player unless you really enjoy the base game and what Forsaken offers. If you buy that, it'll be around for a while, and when you do get through everything else, who knows, maybe it'll be worth it then and they will have added more. I guess I just have a bit of a problem with spending over half of what you spent on the base game when it launched, which was $60, and getting like 1/10 of the content. It's really just a matter of cost for what you get, and the value isn't there. Maybe if they had bundled Forsaken and Shadowkeep together for the price, the value would definitely be there, maybe even worth $40, but at $35 just for Shadowkeep, I can't really see investing in it right now. That's going to be it for this rapid fire review. If you liked it, do me a solid and hit that like button and subscribe. And if you're already subscribed, ring the bell to get notifications on new videos in the future. Oh yeah, and if you like rapid fire reviews or would like to see when I'm doing them live on Twitch, you can head over to my Twitter at AJSADelrith and give me a follow. I'd super appreciate it. Until the next video, this is Delrith, and I'll be seeing ya.